Hi everyone, this is Tyler Constable with Avantra, and in this video we're going to be talking about system types within Avantra. That there's different system types, and we're going to talk a little bit about what each of those are and how you can find them and utilize them throughout all of Avantra.
So as we go into our Avantra Master, you'll see the systems dropdown on the top, which provides the different types of systems. Now, systems are also how your Avantra Master is licensed by how many of the different types of systems you have. But it's important to cover what are involved in each of these system types. So you'll see there are 6 system types. The first is servers. So I'm going to select servers, and you'll see here we have a list of operating systems. So here you can see all the different servers. This is where I would go to look for the checks that are server-based. So things like CPU, memory, file system space, right? All the server-based checks. Now, any point where you see a chart like this, you can search this as well. So let's just say I wanted to see my SUSE Linux. I just type in SUSE up here in the top right, and now everything drops down. You'll also see that if it's a cloud-based system, the little icon will have a cloud here. And if it is a cluster, you'll see a 2-node cluster here. And when you click into that cluster, you scroll to the bottom, you can actually see which systems. Now this is for example, it's a 1-node cluster, but you'd actually see all the nodes in the cluster under this Properties tab. You can also set filters as well. So just by right-clicking here and adding on the other filters. So maybe you want to see the IP address or what have you. It's just easy. Again, just right-click and you can see your other options here. You can also select which systems maybe have monitoring turned off, which ones are not operational. Some nice filter ways up there as well. So the other system types, this is servers. There's also SAP instances. So this is where you would come in to look at your primary application server, central instance, however you refer to it, and any additional application servers. Trex and web dispatchers would all be, or TREX would all be in the SAP instances. You'll see that the kernel release is easily marked here as well. So you can actually see what's the kernel on each particular SAP instance. And you'll see here on the left-hand side, anytime that there is a little 1, that is the primary application server or central instance. Anywhere that there's just a plain one that is in a secondary application server, right? So an app server, and you can actually see what kind here under the type and the system number. And similar to the servers, you can right-click, and there are other selection criteria you can use as well. Now these SAP instances roll up into the SAP system. So the SAP system is where you will probably spend most of your time looking at the SAP systems. Very similar. You can always search like you could before. You can add additional criteria here. You can filter as you would see fit. And here we can see everything is green except for one system, which is red, which is down. What's important to note when you go into a particular system, let me go into one here. If you go to the SAP System Details tab, you'll actually see the instances that we were just looking at in the last screen that are associated with this particular system. Right? So you also in the SAP system, you can see which clients, ABAP software components, the Java software components, the change options, what's modifiable, what's not modifiable, and you can also see your SAP licenses and when they're set to expire. Next, you'll see we have databases. Now, what's important to note here is if you're looking at a database that is associated with an SAP system, so it's the primary database for an SAP system, you wouldn't look at it at databases. You would actually look at it in the SAP system. So in the SAP system, just as a quick example, I'd go to my checks here. And in this particular example, this is a HANA, so it's HDB. We'll go further into checks in a future training video, but this is just to clarify that if it's the primary database of an SAP system, you would go into the SAP system type, right? Databases are for standalone databases HANA sidecars, so on and so forth. So if it's just a standalone Oracle database, not connected to an SAP system or anything like that, you would go into the databases. Again, you can double click and get into that particular database. Similar to the other system types, you can right click and select different criteria, so on and so forth, of how you want to search and display the list of databases. Next, we have business objects. So if you have any SAP business object checks, all of that would be in here. You'll see in this particular example, we only have one that's currently down, but this is where you would find your SAP business objects checks. And then lastly, we have what's called our cloud services. In the version we're currently looking at today, 20.5, we have pre-built connections into SAP Cloud Platform Neo or any kind of generic API that you want to look at. So it could be something, if you use the SAP Integration Hub, and you can look at different APIs for things like SuccessFactors, Ariba, Concur, all of the SAP SaaS solutions. Or if you have an API of anything at all, it could be, Salesforce or whatever your organization uses. It does not have to be SAP specific. But if you have an API, we can, be able to monitor that API. Even something like Freshdesk, which is the ticketing system we use here at Avantra, or maybe even something silly like our Chuck Norris jokes that we have an API for as well. A couple other quick notes when we're looking through these lists of servers, instances, SAP systems, business objects, or cloud connectors is, there are things you can do in here like turn monitoring on or off simply by selecting Control or Shift as you normally would. Here you can do multiple systems. You can turn monitoring on or off here, so you can actually see what's all going to be monitoring is going to be turned off. You can add a reason, so on and so forth. And it's also important to note that when you open one of these up, you'll see it opens up on the bottom half of the screen, leaving you the ability to still search through the rest of your systems on the top half. Now, if you would like this to go full screen, we can come over here and select this little thumbtack here, which is called the undock button. All right, so this little hidden button here, you select that, and this now goes into a full screen and kind of maybe a little bit better to see the system, and you can see it open up a whole new tab here. So in this session, we covered the different types of systems, how to search and filter through those system types, and maneuvering between systems.